haven't really done that good of a job yet with this material. And I don't have any scrutinizers to encourage me. And it's hard when you have Parkinson's or deaf, eye problems from being tortured. I've been tortured by some agency of some sort. It appears to be the Green Party working with Donald Trump. And Peter Gabriel really let me down. Somebody who knew me should write a letter about that to someone. But I could show you some, it's psychological exhaustion from all the symptoms and hitting me. But one of my letters appears in this magazine from quite a while ago, where I discuss the letters I found back when I believed they indicated that John Lennon had been murdered. You can see the symbol of Asian woman's beauty on the cover. It says something about violent pink. You see, because it's relevant because Pink Floyd was attaching the horrible criminality of Peter Gabriel towards me in those days. Amanda Harcourt would talk about Joni Mitchell, who was an enfant terrible of Roger Waters. It was obviously because my father was so important. He was at Teachers College after being on Bush's ship in the Navy in World War II with Eisenhower. He was obviously, so I was selected as a token to abuse because I came from Plymouth Meeting, and he was rallying. Whoever did this was rallying people to reject me because of the situation from Leyte Gulf with the little boy bomb. So they earmarked me as little boy. There was a fat man named Michael Todd. And they followed me with SWAT teams. I'm interviewed in this Hammerman article because it was my next door neighbor. I came out in the hall and the SWAT are pointing, those radar light rifles at me and stuff like that. Yeah, stuff like that. They wouldn't let me go to school for a really, really long time. They wouldn't let me go to school. I became a straight A student after somebody taught me sign language and graduated and made that Phi Theta Kappa. And people casing me. They had me in the newspaper with Governor Jay Inslee side by side, People casing me say that I crossed the black man, but the people pulling the strings are Hollywood movers and shakers. Like Clint Eastwood sent me a smoking gun autograph, and I do show my respect. This is 24 hours of cultural competency training. It's not like I don't labor to show my respect. And there's mysteries from, like she says, putting your best foot forward, and then Mitra signs a foot autograph. What's all this kicking out imagery? Well, then I was finding Hitler-Reagan semiotics hidden in his movies. You don't see that, it goes by too fast. But that isn't Photoshop. And I did a long paper for the deans about it. And I was making film clips. I didn't really know what I was seeing, frankly. I honestly didn't know what I was seeing. I do now. I'll move this discourse to the three mirrors. Mirrors are used as the Hitler symbol in his cinema from the German cinema system, and he was in power. It's like a metaphor for our lives. Cinema is a mirror. I found in 6 international cinema systems 3 mirrors. These are German, French, British, Japanese, American, I guess Italian cinema systems have the same 3 mirrors. And the 3 mirrors are Kennedy's assassination over Hiroshima. It specifies that it was over Hiroshima. And then they transfer the script, they send it to me from Israel to Little Boy by way of that through the Navy. It's like an Army Navy palace uh, reckoning. So what they did to me was it's in a mirror system. It's in Diva, the Magic Christian, and at the University of Pittsburgh when Seattle football franchise came zooming in for the German Green Party and set me up with a one night stand that they claimed dishonored the African power structure of Vladimir Putin and so on. It was called Two Virgins Pussy Ball over Midori Goto, and they have Midori Teriyaki, which is relevant because of the Revolution #9 soundtrack that they squished into the memory of Jimmy Carrere when they kidnapped and tortured me and subjected me to violent pedo ordeals, a Manson ordeal, really. Gassed me, tortured me, and said things that left impressions on my psyche. And these starlets and Huns showed up at Carnegie Mellon with Jaime Carbonell, and he has these people, these lords of cinema capture, saying, "You've been porking anybody lately? You've been porking anybody lately?" And I auto regurgitated something I heard as a child about Climax One fairies. Tied her up and porked her with a carrot. So that was about Terry. You're going into teriyaki, Midori teriyaki. See, the black man immediately swoops down and calls dibs on Midori. And they justify an AIDS war game on Mount Desert Island run by the Society for Human Ecology and Jackson Immunogenetic and Peter Gabriel have been talking about a scheme to transform the human race by injecting the blood. So the second mirror is before AIDS happened. They were saying this stuff. So they tried to cover it up as a scared straight program. Less than lethal biologicals were being used. So the psychopathy of Seattle is beyond belief. They helped them give me Parkinson's, for example, and they're still terrorizing me. I'm a senior citizen deaf with eyesight problems, glaucoma, irreversible eye damage from their brutality. And they still make life miserable for me every chance they get. These people from Seattle are stark raving mad that the second mirror, in other words, was 2 verbs placebo clocked to the AIDS attack and limning an arc of colors in which the defenses of the institution of marriage. So in the end, it's wedding bells and fundamentalism get the nod by the moral majority. So, that's what's going to play out with the storyline that's in the winds about these islands of sexual slavery. Well, it was defense of marriage. Get it? Ask Lindsey Graham if you don't believe it. So the first mirror, all the mirrors are in international cinema. And language stunts, like the way they use Casper as a symbol for the Houdini that John Lennon, because he was a mastermind of this thing, pulled in the symbol of the redemption of Hitler. They call it Casper. That's the third mirror. But you can see what I'm talking about. You can go into your own movies and make your own scrapbooks. It's in everything they did. This is the Odessa file, and John Voight is driving down the road, and you hear the Kennedy's been killed over the radio, and Ronald appears on the screen, and it morphs into Oswald appears on the screen, and morphs into Ronald, and it's in Reagan's The Killers. The Zapruder film action is in The Killers, so it's clear that Reagan hustled the mirror system as part of his operation of killing Kennedy and setting up this war game on Mount Desert Island, which took place while he and Bush were holding the reins to the chief executive, and Clinton was getting massages from Donald Trump, who was in waiting. But like you can see, they used my birthday and set up the macabre song and dance about symbols of gratification and diva. She stands before a mirror and says, "Oh, you're the lucky one, right?" And I was a nice blonde boy, as Kurt Miles Kirshner said about me. That's why Steve Langer said, "I'm not sorry for anything I did, only that it had to be you." You see, they wanted to sacrifice a nice blonde boy. And it's in all of these films. I made a mirror system record that compares what they did with Obama's stunt at the University of Pittsburgh to show that it is a mirror. It mirrors reality. Then Alias Little Boy, which is all one word, ALIASLITTLEBOY, no space. In YouTube, you can check out the Telltale clip too. It shows very clearly what Obama was doing with Pussy Ball, and it's perfectly clear that that's what they did. And you have that's why I call it the Telltale clip. You know, and it's all been very straightforward. Also, the Lucky Rabbit is the idea of the teriyaki. The guy who was from Japan in this picture under the nuclear bunker sign is watching Oswald's death cab pull out of Dallas Police Department. It was a semiotic system that was in reality, just as I say, quite accurately, that the action in Dealey Plaza is mirrored in Reagan's The Killers. And of course, John Lennon had a record about the war game called Two Virgins. If you look through my scrapbooks, it's hard to do this with the machinery that I have, but I've shown some people. You see that over and over again they have these symbols of John Lennon actually ducking out, actually getting away. They have Mannix, I'd like you to find out who killed me, movies from Ingrid Bergman. I'll try to find some of them, one or two of them, so you can see what I'm talking about. Because it's the third mirror, is the way that Hitler and Lenin Houdini were revenge attacked by, and it will be just like starting over, you know, for Yoko Ono, the blank check that Gwiner was given. I mean, Yoko Ono was given by Boris, John Lennon. They have books like the Cinematic Poetics of Guilt. You see, the little boy is the cinematic poetics of guilt. And they set this whole thing up so that they call me names. And they have images of the girl who wrote the script in Seattle Center. And you can't get anywhere because of doofs like Peter Gabriel saying, no, you know, we won't allow that. You know, we won't allow, like, but here's the mirror in Hitler's. It's a movie about Hitler's cinema. It says, a timeless image when cinema celebrates itself. And here she is, the incarnation of depravity. Same movie with has the mirror image in it. I could show you this if you're interested. And Gail Burson appears on cover of a record starring Robert Fripp from the year before they claimed John Lennon got killed. What's he doing in Seattle Center on a Fripp record? It doesn't make any sense. But they have images of Lazarus with Reagan sitting under the U.S. over a swastika. Back from the dead, right? It's in Franklin Graham's book. The back from the dead symbolism. I haven't worked on the third mirror enough to have really commands of these archives. I've done some work that you can find in my channel, but it's difficult to find things because I've been a slave to interrogation by the people who did it. Yes, you heard me correctly. They hold domination and power. There's been nothing I can do. I've talked to people who've lived with me, and they refuse to do anything. They refuse to even write a letter on my behalf saying, what in the world is Reagan doing to Jimmy? Why did Peter Gabriel get away with doing this to Jimmy? They refuse. And I'm dying from the brutality of it. And they refuse to say anything about it. One of the reasons is because they suppressed it. They could have saved lives. They say, hide something dirty someplace dirty. A lot of the symbolism comes from Japanese pornography, the sea and the Star of David, and the script and the people in the script. And you go back to the days when Walt Disney was in his 20s and, friends with Sergei Eisenstein. You could see the source of the non-aggression treaty through the moguls. Now, there's so much to say. Lenin's, Boris's lyric can be just like starting over as in one of these films, with a look-alike of the girl who wrote the script. You don't have to take my word for this stuff. Just go to the films with your new understanding and look at what they did. Okay, here's some examples. I finally found some. She writes, I say is, not was. He did see you. He thinks I'm dead. That's a film noir movie. Here's Kung Fu #1, Volume 1, #1. That's easy to find. Look it up. We'll know you're alive. It's pernicious. There's 3 mirrors. And it goes back. If you look into my work, you see that it led to Fayum when British intelligence and Italian intelligence were still allies from World War I, and Mussolini was coming into his own. D'Annunzio is the first name in the big movie epic that inspired D.W. Griffith, and he was friends with Mussolini and D.W. Griffith. And he was in this place, Fayum. Italy didn't want him claiming Fayum. It was contested sovereignty zone by Croatia and Habsburg. And everybody was counterfeiting. The year of the Great Dictators got off in this counterfeiting then with the era of the cinema system run by Italian futurists like Marinetti and Luigi Freddi, who projected the Ouspensky fourth-dimensional Superman into the takeover of media to control the world. Man playing God and that. The Cubists, eccentrics, gave a lot of ideas. Like Blas Sanders was playing both sides of the Axis and Allies. And there's a book about him called The Invention of Life. They said to D'Annunzio, don't stop doing that. They even bombed him at one point. Stop claiming that area for Italy. But Mussolini was impressed and went and gave him his good auspices. So D'Annunzio, he was introduced by Daigelow to Sarah Bernhardt. That fat man has a sister who calls herself Sarah Bernhardt, Michael Todd, Sony. So we're dealing with crooked contenders who want to brainwash us into believing, they sound special pleading and bring down all the flock of martyrdom. These were the people who released AIDS and were behind the supernova massacre with Israel.